I know it's different. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Heather Hansen, and we have got a full and busy afternoon here for you today. Dylan Adams, the brother of Zach Adams, who was meant to stand trial for the murder of Holly Bobo, may be talking a plea deal this afternoon. We are going to take you straight there to that courtroom the minute that we have it live. In the meantime, though, we are waiting for a new case to start, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to do a special segment today about the Me Too movement and cases that are stemming from that movement. I am so excited about that segment because of the fabulous guest that I have with me. First of all, I have Stephanie Willis, who's co-hosting with me this afternoon.
Hi,
Stephanie, so
you?
good to have you here.
Thanks
And then
so
Jonna
much.
Spilbor. So we've got three fabulous ladies here to talk about some serious issues.
Yes.
And I know we all have sort of different takes and different viewpoints on this Me Too movement. We're going to be talking about Gene Simmons and the case against him, and Matt Damon and some of his more recent comments. So all of that's going to be coming to you live at around 12:45, depending on when we get this Dylan Adams hearing going. Now, I know that some of you are like, give us trials, and we're doing our best to give you the trials as we're able to access them. But getting cases and getting into courtrooms is not always as easy as you might think. Not all states allow for cameras in the courtroom. I just finished a 2-week trial where cameras were not allowed in the courtroom. So we do get into those as soon as we can, and we do have a trial starting for you tomorrow. That is the case of Iowa versus Larry Whaley. Have you guys had the chance to look at this case at all? It's really another stand your ground / self-defense type thing.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I always think those cases, I guess depending upon what venue and in what jurisdiction you're in, that's really what it hinges upon, in my opinion. So sometimes stand your ground, it's really easy for, I guess, the prosecution to lay their burden of proof, I should say, and in some cases it's not.
Yeah, I mean, this one's going to be really interesting because it is in Iowa, and it's not so much stand your ground as it is self-defense. Mr. Whaley, Larry Whaley, was behind closed doors and shot through the door and killed Samantha Teeter. And he's claiming that these two other people, Heather and Curtis Mays, were after him. He thought that they were outside the door and therefore shot them. I don't know, Jonna, that's a little bit more of a stretch than we normally see.
I think it's touchy. It's touchy because, you know, how much did he know? Were they armed? Were they preparing to shoot? Did they say, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to kill you? What did they do? When you have a chance to escape and avoid that kind of confrontation, most of the time a prosecutor is going to want you to do that, and so will the jury. Plus, I think this defendant, I don't want to say he's a little, he's just,
okay. You
he's
can say
a little
it.
strange. And that's not going to help his cause either. And he was declared competent.
I'd like to say something, if I can, really quick. I think that something else that's going to come down here, and it may be a little controversial, but I think race is going to be a big deal here as well. If we want to look at it, I know George Zimmerman was recently in the news over the weekend,
geez,
but
yes,
you
he
want to take a
was.
look at that as well. The fact that George Zimmerman was able to successfully portray the stand your ground law in Florida, but yet we have here this defendant is a black individual, and we're going to see whether or not the scales of justice will come in his favor.
The thing, though, is, Stephanie, I totally hear what you're saying because so many African Americans are not able to use that defense the way George Zimmerman did. But see, the problem with this guy, to Jonna's point, is he's probably not the best example for us to sort of argue that fight because he's got some competency issues. There was some question as to whether or not he was mentally competent to stand trial. The prosecutors brought 2 experts who said that he was, but I wouldn't be surprised, Jonna, if there was some sort of a mental sanity defense here. He's just not, he's writing letters to the judge. He's already fired one of his lawyers. He definitely, and so, you know, it's unfortunate because we do need to see more of those cases. I mean, that woman, I forget her name, but there was a well-known African-American woman who was not able to invoke the stand your ground defense. And that's the type of case we should be talking about. This Larry Whaley, we'll see, but I have a feeling that some of the letters that he's written to the judge, I've seen copies of some of them, and he's definitely going to be an interesting defendant. I wouldn't be surprised if he pipes up and has a little bit of his own stuff to say.
And what did his mental state have to do at the time that this was committed? How did that affect him? Did his mental state make it reasonable for him to think that he was in imminent fear? I mean, those are the things I would explore, have my expert explore if I were defending him.
Yeah, I would definitely try to play into the mental status defense if I were he, because I think the fact that he is safe, arguably safe, behind closed doors and shooting through a door.
Right.
And then I do think, to your point, the fact that he killed a young white girl
Yeah.
is going to be really, in Iowa, is going to be an even more difficult
absolutely.
hurdle to overcome. And it's something we don't always talk about when we're talking about these cases.
And the last through the door shooting that we saw, which wasn't even in this country, didn't end well for that defendant either.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, once you're behind a door, it's difficult to say that you were fearing for your life. And now that he's claiming it was two other people who were on the other side. Now, he's tried to subpoena those two people, Curtis and Heather May. We don't really know what role they play in this case. But if they testify, it certainly could get interesting. This case is going to be a doozy. Now, some of you were saying, I thought that case was starting today. They're picking a jury today. And jury selection can take hours. It can take days. It all depends on your jury pool and whether or not there's a lot of preemptive strikes.
And so your judge.
The judge, how it's run. I mean, some people, absolutely. Some judges don't even come to jury selection. Then others are very active in the process, and sometimes they even slow it down a little bit. So we will be taking you live to that trial the minute that it is live, and in the meantime, we'll be talking about it a little bit more this afternoon. We are, as I said, going to be having a conversation. I don't know if you've seen in the news, but Gene Simmons had a lawsuit filed against him by a Jane Doe for, I don't know, sexual harassment, sort of. And we'll talk a little bit about that and whether you think that that is a case that should be brought or whether it's a case that's better solved through a conversation. And that conversation is going to be coming up at about 12:45. In the meantime, though, I know that Jesse this morning was playing some clips of the Dobson case. And before we started, we ladies were sitting around talking about that case a little bit. And while we do know the verdict, one thing that we didn't have a lot of time to get into in the Law and Crime Network that we want to talk about is the use of this YouTube video for the prosecutors. So here the prosecutors were able to use this YouTube video with the three defendants rapping about the Bloods, which is a gang that they were affiliated with. And the defense argued, and Jonna, I'd like to get your position as a defense attorney, and then Stephanie's yours as a prosecutor. The defense argued that that was prejudicial. Right, I mean the face says it all.
The eye roll. I couldn't control the eye roll. They're 1,000% right. I think it was so weird to have that evidence admitted for the very reason that it's so prejudicial, less probative, and because what the prosecution was trying to establish was that there was a gang affiliation because they want to contend it was a gang motivated killing. But to bring in a video where, listen, if somebody took a video of me singing in the shower, it's going to have nothing to do from the neck up. It has nothing to do with anything, right? Who I listen to in my music choices or what I watch on television, that does not prove my character. And that's what they were trying to bring in here. Very unusual. It will definitely be a ground for appeal.
Definitely be a ground for appeal. Now, what do you think, Stephanie?
Well, here's what I have to say. I had my criminal defense hat thinking about this too, so I'll give both sides. I'll give both perspectives. So as a prosecutor, the reason why I want to bring in this video is because I can make the argument that a lot of the times in hip-hop music or music in general, you bring in I want to say life experiences into your music. So they could be rapping or speaking about things that they have done in the past, or whether it's drugs, whether it's murders. And we do know that gang affiliations, sometimes you do have to, quote unquote, or not quote unquote, but you have to commit some kind of a crime or murder in order to be officially a part of the gang.
I'm going to have to interrupt Stephanie for 1 second, but I want to come back to this conversation because it's an interesting one. In the meantime, though, we do have the Adams hearing live for you. We're going to take you there. This is the hearing on Dylan Adams, who has yet to stand trial for the murder of Holly Bobo.